This is a trombone mouthpiece. Now that might be a sound that you hear all too often at the beginning of a rehearsal where all the brass players are buzzing the mouthpiece as a form of warm-up. They're getting their lips energized, they're not having to play their entire instrument, and it's a good way of knowing their embouchure is doing the right thing. Now, why is that important for us as clarinet and saxophone players? Well, I hope to demonstrate that in this video. So I've buzzed the trombone mouthpiece. Now here's the saxophone one. Let's play that. Now, you probably wouldn't want to warm up like this at the beginning of an orchestra rehearsal or band rehearsal like the brass players will, because this is a little bit more obnoxious. And it's not really the done thing. However, playing the mouthpiece by itself is a great reveal on maybe some of the shortcomings of your clarinet and saxophone embouchure. And we're going to run through some of those now. So grabbing the clarinet mouthpiece for a moment, we're going to try and play a note and then drop the pitch. So unfortunately, our default will probably be too tight. So we first play it, and it's a very, very, very high pitch. But what we're after is something down here. And the question is, how do we drop that pitch? As you go lower, you're going to need a lot more air. So let's just get that out of the way right now. High pitch, very easy to just put a little bit of air through and it'll make a sound. As soon as you get lower and that reed is really vibrating, you need lots and lots and lots of air to sustain it. How do we drop the pitch? Is essentially creating lots and lots of room for that reed. We've gone from this two to like a two, tor, tor. We've kind of gone from this T, this very strangled T sound, to a T, and we've got this big resonant kind of open throat, raised soft palate, open chambered tor, and we need lots of air to back that up. Same thing for saxophone. Probably should put some of these instruments down. Okay, same trick. We're probably getting a bit too tight sometimes. Okay, we're gripping on for dear life. So again, we're going from T and we've really opened it up. But as I play lower, I just need so much air to keep it going. And so now we're getting a little bit more into the trombone buzzing territory. And I guess if you can be cheeky, maybe you might be able to pull off a tune. Okay, if that worked first time, that's roughly the tune. Hopefully you recognize it. So there we go. Flexibility of embouchure, really, really important for pitching notes. Truth be told, sometimes you'll be fighting against your instrument. Sometimes you just want a stock standard hard rubber, auto link mouthpiece if it comes to saxophone. For clarinet, gosh, I'm just playing a Van Doren B45, right? These are very, very average mouthpieces, and I'm using very, very average strength reeds. And this will give you, your safest option for just doing the basics. So we're trying to buzz, we're trying to have a bit of fun with the tone, we're trying to be flexible with the mouthpiece. If your equipment is real fancy, like a metal Yanagasawa mouthpiece or some other variant in the clarinet realm, sometimes you'll end up fighting against your equipment. It's quite tricky. You might end up this happening. Oh, probably best on the saxophone. You get this kind of airy sound because it's just not coming out. So yes, equipment. Yeah. So if you're not getting it, maybe you're trying to be too ambitious with your equipment. One other thing with clarinet players is we're always trying to create the perfect tone. Saxophone to a lesser degree, but definitely in clarinet, because you've heard these orchestral pieces and they all sound really nice and pure. But the thing is, we end up just getting too tight on the mouthpiece. And just one of those things. Now, sure, you can try a double lip and sacrifice your top lip, or some other techniques to try and stop yourself from, so-called biting so much. But truth be told, it happens because one, we get tired, and two, because you're trying to control the sound. So trying to loosen up is it's hard. But playing the mouthpiece by itself is one way to try and reveal this. But the thing is, when you do it, you have to be prepared to make it sound ugly. When you drop that pitch, it's going to sound gross and nasty, and we're meant to be trying to embrace that. So here's too tight. Okay, way too tight. Probably go even tighter. Okay, see the pitch going up, but we want to try and bring this down and make it sound real gross. Oh, it's starting to pop. Okay, but notice how as I went lower, I needed more and more airflow. So trying to make this thing sound gross. Same thing for alto sax. Okay, can you see it's challenging? I'm getting a few squeaks in there. Okay, too tight. Let's loosen it up. Okay, we're trying to get that thing as low as possible. Another thing we're trying to do when we're buzzing the mouthpiece is just stability of tone. So as much as we're trying to bend the notes, sometimes it can get a little bit wild. We want to try and get also some stability. We're trying to hold the sound and not have our embouchure kind of moving all over the place, unbeknownst to us. And when we're playing the mouthpiece by itself, it becomes a little bit more obvious that something's moving on you as you're playing longer and longer. So you can hear it starting to waver a little bit. So same thing on the alto saxophone mouthpiece. We're just trying to hold a note. And you're going to be working really, really hard because that thing needs lots of airflow. So why does all this matter? Once we've got this mouthpiece attached to our instrument, we can just push the keys down and some notes come out. It's all great. But the thing is, because of our habits, especially of gripping hard, we typically go a little bit sharp once we go a little bit higher. Now, I'm personally incredibly guilty of this. I get a little bit too tight on the embouchure, and my high notes go a little bit sharp. The tuner is the big reveal. But now that we know that we're sharp, what can we do? We can't just keep pulling the mouthpiece out, because what about the other notes? Well, those notes will then go out of tune. So we have to have this awareness of, one, I'm going sharp, I better do something about it. But two, how do I pitch it down without it sounding super gross? But, let's just be honest, this thing's a pretty wild and aggressive instrument up high, so you're not trying to be pretty at this point. So once we get up high, we gotta try and pitch the note. Oops, so I'm probably taking it to some extremes there, but here's your high, here's the D. So we're using those same techniques. Toar. Okay, so I make it sound really, really gross at this point, but you get the idea that I'm using my embouchure flexibility to adjust the pitch of this high D. So once we get to something a bit higher, so maybe an E. Okay, we've got a note, but let's try and pitch it down. We've got ourselves a little bit of flexibility to get this note in tune, especially when the instrument's it's gotten warm, so maybe we've pre-tuned it, and then suddenly we've gone a little bit sharp, and you can hear it with the rest of the ensemble, and you don't have enough time to pull it out or anything. You got to use your embouchure to try and get yourself in the tune. So let's hear that note again. So we're trying to play, an E, and we've got the mouthpiece by itself. Let's try and play that note. Ooh. Somewhere around there. It could be in tune, it might not be. Okay, embouchure again. So these are all good little skills to have, especially when you're playing these high notes in the alto. And if you've got the fancy little F sharp on the side, you can always also try that one. Now, of course, this also applies to clarinet. This could be awkward because I don't do this one as much for this particular exercise. So, throat notes. Let's start with throat notes. Throat notes, we're very, very, let's just say, prone to going too sharp on them. Okay, so throat notes are like your G, G sharp, A, B flat. And it's just kind of the nature of the instrument, especially when you start pulling the barrel out. It goes a little bit out of tune with just, so for example, if you're widening the neck closer to those notes, it's going to become a little more affected. Now we want to have flexibility of embouchure to be able to drop that pitch. So we're going tu 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 tu. We're kind of getting that soft palate involved, so not all tight and small. Tu tu tu. You're trying to go tu 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 tu. If we get too tight, it's probably meant to be down a little bit. And it just so happens that the throat notes are much more affected, or are probably one of the more common notes in the clarinet that go out of tune, because we're in there quite a bit, and those just get a little bit sharp. So just loosen up, open it up, make it a bit more almost like you're a vocalist. Tall. So let's take some higher notes on the clarinet. So you can hear that flexibility coming in. But this is getting very, very high for a mouthpiece. So that's time to match your high D. Bring it down to a B. We should still be able to play something like that. So in many, many ways, we want to be able to hear these notes in our head, and our embouchure is kind of subconsciously going into that shape that we're after, hopefully. Because we don't want to treat the instrument as if, again, we don't want to treat it as if we just blow some air, we push our fingers down and a note comes out. I mean, as much as all this is helping for that, in many, many ways, we're hopefully subconsciously, we're pitching this note in our head. And then pitching it in our embouchure. And it helps us just get a little bit more in tune, just lets it sing a little bit more. So, like I said, these are more like exercises, they're tips, they're tricks. You don't want to treat them as a one-to-one translation to, oh, I play it like this with my mouthpiece by itself, therefore I do exactly the same thing on the clarinet. Not really, it's never really as clear-cut as that. It's just a trick to say, okay, how do I get this note in tune? How do I get it to sound like with a bit more clearer without being strangled so much? And these are just some of the tricks that you can use to achieve that sound. And what a great use of pitch bending or flexibility of embouchure than to just do some nasty, gross party trick sounds. So we've got our laughing clarinet. Okay, so that flexibility of embouchure extends beyond just being able to pitch notes, get things in the tune, but we want to be able to do some like lip glisses. And that's all about flexibility of embouchure, being able to blend, flex the notes, grind, just have fun with falls. Okay, just dropping pitches, It helps for things like vibrato. And the same thing translates pretty well for saxophone. We don't have open keys on alto, so we can't use some of the lip glissy techniques that a clarinet offers, but really the bending of pitches can still afford that kind of lip gliss sound. And that's all just this kind of that's just playing around with this, what we did with the mouthpiece earlier. So we take that flexibility of embouchure, that and again we've got our vibrato, which is kind of like flexibility of embouchure. We're kind of doing a slight squeeze, slight release. So okay, it's a little bit more gross on the mouthpiece by itself, but you can see where this originates from. This ability, this flexing of the embouchure. You can hear it obviously on the mouthpiece by itself, and then we translate it into our saxophone. And there we're starting to see some practical uses of being able to have a flexible embouchure. So hopefully that little collection of ideas is enough to encourage you to grab this mouthpiece by itself and give it a bit of a play, see what's working, see what's not. Hopefully it's revealed a few things. Hopefully it's encouraged you to loosen up a little bit, have a bit of a play with pitch, and then once you stick it back onto your instrument, see how those things that you have revealed can encourage you to try things slightly differently. Remember, it's just another tool in the toolkit. It's just yet another technical thing that we can try to pursue that constant goal of improving our tone, improving airflow, sound generation, intonation. At the very least, you've learned a new party trick to make some funny noises.